Hi guys, this is Taylor. It's about to start pouring any minute and I'm here today with my February wrap-up. February turned out to be a great reading month for me. I had 2 5-star ratings. 2. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing I completed in February was Felicia Day's memoir, You're Never Weird on the Internet, Almost. I enjoyed this, but maybe not as much as other reviewers I've seen. Felicia Day is an actress and internet personality, and I was a little bit wary of this memoir because I think sometimes when the internet gets removed from the context of the internet, it can be very weird to talk about, but she actually navigated that very well. Basically, I felt like some of these stories could have been fleshed out a lot more. For example, the fact that she was almost a Tejano pop star under the name Felicia Diaz. That's a real thing, but that whole story was like a paragraph. But I am glad to have read this, and it really made me want to watch her web series again, knowing just how upstart and DIY it was. I ended up giving this 3 stars. If you like Felicia Day, then definitely give this a shot and see what you think of it. So at this point in the month, I was kind of just picking up a lot of things and not really making progress in anything, so I turned to the Royal Diary series, as I almost always do. I've talked about this series before. It's a children's middle grade series, I think you could call it either, and it's the fictitious diaries of real-life historical princesses. So they've done Elizabeth I and Cleopatra, Marie Antoinette, and they're almost always female-driven and really badass and just a whole lot of fun. The next in the series that I had to read was Sonduk, Princess of the Moon and Stars, Korea 595 AD, and oh boy, this is probably my second favorite in the series after Cleopatra. One of the main things I loved about this was, I mean, what does the average person know about Korea in 595 AD, right? So I love that it shed a light on a place and time that I knew absolutely nothing about. And what I learned was that this takes place in a time of deeply rooted gender-based social inequality, but also a time of social change. It also takes place at a time when there's a real intersection between beliefs and faiths, and that, coupled with the social change, means that essentially Sonduk is destined to lead a new world that she knows nothing about. And she was just such a smart, likable, confident character, and all of that combined just made this so good. I give this one 4 stars. And I always read this series 2 at a time because you can pretty much read them in a day or 2. So the next in the series was Jinora, Princess of Princesses, India 1627. I really enjoyed this one, not as much as Sonduk, but it was still pretty good. Both of these have really strong themes of conflicting ideologies, and they're both explored really well by wonderful, likable characters. I give this a solid 3 stars. I feel like there are definitely low points in this series. There were some princesses I just did not care to read about at all, but both of these were really good. So then I picked up a book from my need to read in 2016 list, and that was Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, who from this point on will be known as JSF because I just cannot say his last name. Polarizing is the first thing that I think of when I think of JSF. He's both been praised and criticized so much, but I am finding myself that I tend to err on the side of praise. A lot of you probably know what this is about. This is about a 9-year-old boy whose father died in the September 11th attacks, and shortly thereafter he discovers a key belonging to his father that he kind of goes around New York City on a little quest to find out what it unlocks. And I thought this was amazing, honestly. To me, the events that JSF puts in his books and the way that he writes about them all evoke a feeling of magical realism, even though the events are totally plausible. And that is just so captivating to me. It's my favorite aspect of his books. This was deeply, deeply sad, but beautifully rendered, and what wasn't beautifully written was kind of dutifully horrific and necessary. I loved this. I loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. So, feeling inspired, I then picked up another book from my 2016 TBR, On Immunity by Eula Biss. This is nonfiction that examines the practice and the science of vaccination, and this was also amazing. This was pretty much as unbiased as a work written by a human being can be, but she worked for it. And the best kind of socio-political nonfiction is empirical. It doesn't alienate the other side, it doesn't make it us versus them in the first place. This was also like the best written piece of nonfiction I've ever read, pretty much. It just follows the natural patterns of thinking so well. And really one of the most amazing things about this book is that it does all of that and it's less than 200 pages. Really accessible. I gave this my other 5-star rating of the month. It was just so good. Also, I half read this, half listened to the audiobook, and it was really well done, really well paced, so I can recommend that as well. After that, I picked up The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and I'm still struggling to sort out my feelings about this. This is set in modern-day South Korea, and it centers on a woman who is struggling with a mental illness that basically makes her repulsed by meat, and it kind of just goes downhill from there. Like I said, I'm still struggling to really know myself how I feel about this because it definitely wasn't what I was expecting, and it was a little bit underwhelming, honestly. What I did like about this was that it feels like the setup of a horror novel. There is this awful tension that just never gets released, and I really actually did like how that was done. But even though mental illness was the main focus here, there was something just not empathetic about the way it was explored. And just a fair warning, this does contain elements of sexual abuse, of animal abuse, and just some nasty manipulation. So if you find yourself sensitive to those things, I ended up giving this 3 stars, for now at least. And the very last thing I read in February was Jen Campbell's pamphlet of 100 poems. These poems are full of whimsy, and they contain fairy tale elements and just speak a lot about the nature of storytelling itself. If you like Jen Campbell, if you're familiar with what she does, then you'll totally love this. And all of these poems are available to read online, which I will link down below. So March. I don't usually do TBRs, but March is going to be a little bit different because I am tackling Haruki Murakami's 1Q84. This is book 1 of 3. The other 2 are up there and I don't want to get them. So this is really my only goal for March. It's about 1,200 pages and it will be the longest book I've ever read. Yep. I started like sweating reading the first few pages of this last night. So that was my February and that will be my March, and that's all I have for you today. I hope you're having a good one and I will see you soon. Bye!